All right, it's time to talk about Game of Thrones a little bit. Believe this was episode 6 of season 5. Um, this episode wasn't, all that wonderful. I mean, it was okay, but nothing overly interesting except for Arya. Where do we start here? I always have trouble figuring out where to start. Um, I guess honestly, I'll start with some of the bigger ones this time. Let's start with Sansa first. As we know, she was engaged, and then in this episode, she obviously gets now Sansa's story or her point of view is all new content for both book readers and show watchers, according to what I know. Um, so I do find it kind of interesting how that's the case. And I wonder what show or what book readers really think about it. I mean, for me, it just seems the first person who gets a piece of Sophie Turner, of all people. Um, Fuck Ramsay. He's awful. One of the most despicable people in the entire freaking franchise, next to people like Cersei and Walder Frey. But anyway, um, you know, the girl Miranda, she tries to scare her, but like an boss. Absolute boss. She's like, "This is my home, bitch. You can't scare me." Um, I mean, like, she thinks she's hot shit, but she and Sansa endured King's Landing and all kinds of shit. She is certainly becoming something else entirely. Um, this whole situation is somewhat reminiscent of the beginning of Daenerys' story, but I highly doubt it's going to pan out the same way. Um, Khal Drogo wasn't really abusive, as we're sure Ramsay will be. Khal Drogo was horny as fuck, and of course he wanted a big piece of. At the same time, he wasn't really abusive, and she burned him. And I don't think that's gonna happen with Sansa. I don't think she's gonna try. She's gonna kill him. That's like if the season finale, which it may not even get to that point, but if the season finale is her killing Ramsay and maybe Roose Bolton, um, that would be something else. Uh, I would love to see that shit. Just like he comes in barging in for sex or something, and then she's like, "Not today." Slice. I don't know, or whatever. Maybe she'll bludgeon him to death or something. I don't know. I want to see her do something badass, just because she's starting to grow as a character and shit like that. So, um, let's see. Is there anything else really to talk about with her? I mean, there was the whole thing with Theon, of course, and the very end scene where she bends over basically, and it's implied that Ramsay rips off her clothes and ass fucks her, not necessarily rapes, but close enough. It's Theon. He's standing there. She's Theon's childhood friend, but you know he doesn't really want to see it. But Ramsay's looking at him like, "Look, Theon. Look, Reek. I'm gonna fuck your childhood friend." And as he stands in this in disbelief, Ramsay turns to him and says, "Don't believe me, just watch." Yeah, that was a joke. Yeah, I couldn't resist. But yeah, I mean, he basically ordered him to watch, which is fucking crazy on both ends. I was just like, yo, what the fuck, Ramsay? Though, admittedly, this is not the most cruel thing that he's done thus far. Yeah. So, I guess let's talk about Arya, I guess, next. A good portion focused on Arya, which I liked. Mostly because we actually got to see more stuff. Like, one of the interesting things was when the girl told the story, basically her story, quote unquote, to Arya, and I completely thought it was true, and she did too. And then she stopped and said, "Did you believe every word that I just said?" And she said, "Get back to work," which implies the fact that Arya felt the same way I did. I actually believed her. I didn't get the fact that she was lying. Um, but then we go to the part where Arya is now trying to tell her story to Jaqen, but every time she lies, he knows and he hits her, which is very interesting because he he's either picking up on subtle details or he knows something that we don't. Um, but obviously, when she says she hated the Hound, uh, Jaqen knew that was a lie, a bold-faced lie. So that indicates something right there. Um, Not necessarily that she loved him, but she definitely did not hate him. That's for sure. Uh, yeah, and then she sees the all that she gets in the room with all the faces after she gives that cup uh, to the girl. I thought that was a very good scene, just because she really understood what it meant, because she made up a story on the spot, basically, and just um, pretty much made up a story that would ease her pain, thinking it would be good, and ended up killing her, obviously. So she cleaned the corpse and then was allowed to see the faces. And the point is not to become nobody, but to become somebody else. And that's one of the things she had to learn, I think. So Jaqen says, you know, you're not ready to become nobody. You are ready to become someone else. I know I abbreviated that quote, but whatever. Um, so I guess that's Arya. Let's talk about King's Landing a little bit. Oh God, what the King's Landing really pissed me off in this episode, because it's just like, this is such a fucking farce. Like, seriously. Um, and Loras Tyrell's an idiot. Just saying, he's an absolute idiot for losing his cool. Um, I mean, he fell into the same trap that Tyrion did. Uh, so I mean, I guess I can't blame him too much, because Tyrion, as smart as he is, fell for that trap too. Um, so the whole crap with the gay shit, and he's basically being condemned to because he's gay. Um, and like, it even seems like Cersei's on their side, but really she never was. She planned that the whole time, because it was obvious she was conspiring with um, them, the High Septor, or whatever they call them, the High Septum, and those guys, because they brought out Marjorie, and um, the big key here was getting Marjorie on the stand to say that to her knowledge, she refused the charges, basically refuted the charges. That was the point. It had nothing to do with Loras. It had everything to do with getting Marjorie arrested. And it should be obvious by now that it was all Cersei's plan, because, um, Loras would speak, and then they called up Marjorie to corroborate his testimony, and then they bring out the counter witness that would then indict Marjorie for perjury, uh, because you can't lie under oath. Not even in Game of Thrones world. So yeah, that's. I mean, Tommen. Tommen's the one that really just kind of pissed me off because he can do. He's the fucking king. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. Like, as bad as Joffrey was, he exercised and showed very clearly that the king can do whatever the fuck he wants. Granted, he got pushed around by Tyrion and Tywin, but really, if he wanted something, he got it. Unless, like, if it was in his servant's power, he got it. But Tommen is very weak because he's too nice. But he's at least likable. But at the same time, like, really, like, that's the girl you're fucking every night, or presumably every night. You gotta do something. Like, it's Marjorie. She can't die from this, man. If she gets executed, that's just awful. Um, but yeah, this is just a big farce, and the king can just dismiss all charges if he wants. Because I know what they said. They said that kings or neither kings nor queens are exempt from testifying under when it comes to like a religious thing. It has nothing about dismissing the charges. He can dismiss the charges whenever he wants. Um, he can pardon Marjorie. He can pardon um, Loras, and yeah. So that's that. What will happen? I don't know. And of course, Baelish. Yeah, let's talk about Littlefinger real quick because this fucker came to Cersei saying like basically spilling the beans that Sansa is in Winterfell and marrying Ramsay. Now, it seems quite obvious what he's trying to do, but at the same time, I'm wondering. I mean, it's obvious that he wants to get Warden of the North. That was very obvious from the start. Um, but what is he going to do beyond that? Because Cersei wanted Sansa's head on a spike. Um, she wants her dead because she still believes that Sansa is partially responsible for killing Joffrey, which we obviously know is a lie because we know it was Littlefinger and Olenna Tyrell, ironically, the two people that talked to her who were responsible for killing Joffrey. Um, so, um, what else to say? But yeah, it's obvious that he wants the warden to be Warden of the North. That's his plan. Whether or not it will succeed, we'll see. Um, Obviously, as we know, Stannis is going to attack Roose Bolton, and what will happen from there, nobody knows, because I'm pretty sure the books have not gotten there yet. Uh, I don't even I don't even know if Stannis has left Castle Black in the books. I think it was presumed. I can't remember, but um, I personally I think like shouldn't Stannis like have like the massive advantage against Bolton in terms of army and shit? But I don't know. Regardless, that's that. Was there anything else really? Oh yeah, of course. There's Highgarden. Can't forget about Dorne. Or not, you're not Highgarden. The Water Gardens of Dorne. Uh, it's funny, Bronn was singing this fucking song, this weird ass song about the Dornish. It was like very insulting to them too. I think, from what I remember. And there's also the Jorah thing. I guess I'll touch on that last. There wasn't much of it. Uh, But yeah, it's like Jaime, and it was interesting because Jaime finally saw Marcella, and she, she's like, "Oh, Uncle Jaime," and shit, and then she didn't want to talk in private, but it just so happened that the prince saw the blood coming from Bronn's, clothing, and he decided to do something stupid. But I just, before the Sand Snakes attack, I really just wanted to see some kind of interaction between Marcella and Jaime alone, one on one, because we know what kind of a situation they're in. You know, he's obviously the real father of Marcella, but he can't. She's not allowed to know, and nobody's allowed to know of that. And like, he's trying to act as her uncle, but he's really her dad. So I, we never really seen them talk one on one on screen. So I think this may actually be the first like bit of screen time they've really actually like concretely shared together. Um, so I really want to see the dynamic between the two. How do they interact? Like, what kind of relationships do they really have? Um, it's not, it's not certain, and I wanted to be certain because I think it's interesting. So yeah, the Sand Snakes attack. Bronn does pretty well up until Jaime was doing okay. He was doing whatever uh, until the captain showed up with that glaive type of weapon. Uh, did he say? Did the prince say axe? Call it an axe? That is nothing like an axe. That's a pole weapon first off. There are pole axes, but it's not a pole axe. It was more like a glaive or something like that. I don't know. Um, I don't know, but certainly no axe. So he steps in, and all the people step in, and it's like drop your weapons, etc. So we'll see what happens with them. Lastly, there was just small conversation between Tyrion and Jorah. That was good dialogue because, like, basically Tyrion just told him that his dad died. And Beyond the Wall basically was mutinied, as we know by can't remember that asshole's name that got killed by Jon. But yeah, he finds out that his dad's dead, and there was some shit there. It was an interesting conversation because they they seemed to be getting along a little bit better, and then the traitors came in, the fucking pirates or whatever, and basically took them hostage. And the whole thing with the dwarf's cock was very funny. I don't need to go into detail there. Um, and then he basically saves Jorah by saying that he can fight, and so basically he's going to fight in the fighting pits and is going to try to prove his value to Daenerys maybe there. And I'm assuming there's going to be something with Tyrion as well that'll get him on Daenerys' side. So, I mean, that's it, I think. This episode was okay. It was interesting, but really just okay. Um, so, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you guys next week.